Hello, this is Anna Amelia from North East Animal Rights, doing another one of our Saturday Spotlight interviews. Today we have the fabulous Julia Ekwall, who is a prominent animal rights activist, works a lot with Surge, and also is an actor in her own right as well in America. Okay, so welcome, Julia, and thank you very much for agreeing to do this. Okay,
You're so
without
welcome.
further ado, we're just going to go straight into the questions, if that's okay.
Okay, great.
So the first one is, can you describe to me your veganism journey? Did you have a light bulb moment where you just saw something and thought that's it? Or was it more of a gradual process?
So yeah, this is quite a long story, but I'll try to make it short. So I would say that when I was younger, I don't know if I had an exact light bulb moment, but I watched the film called Babe.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, I was quite young when I watched that. And, the first scene in the film when Babe is with his mother and all of his siblings, and then the truck comes in and takes away all the mothers. And I remember not exactly knowing what was going on because I was so young when I watched that film, but just knowing that something was wrong there, and that was very cruel. And so I think that sort of started, just getting me thinking about animal rights and animal cruelty. And so up until, I know in the UK it's a little different. So in the US we have grades. So in ninth grade, you're about, I don't know, maybe like 14, 15.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so that's when I turned full vegetarian. Before that, I was kind of, on and off vegetarian, growing up.
Mm-hmm.
And then, ninth grade, I turned full vegetarian. We watched a documentary in my social studies class about the meat industry in the 1920s.
Mm-hmm.
And they showed us this clip of like actual footage from a slaughterhouse today, of a pig, being slaughtered. And I remember just walking out the classroom. I was just so distraught by watching that.
Yeah.
And so then I told myself, you know what, that January 1st, I'm going to turn full vegetarian.
Mm-hmm.
And then about 4 years ago, I turned full vegan. So yeah, because I realized that, you know what, obviously the meat industry is so terrible, but I think sometimes we often forget that the dairy industry is just as bad and sometimes even worse.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I've been vegan for 4 years now.
Yeah. It's interesting that you're actually citing the film Babe, because obviously Babe is it's one of those films that at the time everybody kind of thought it was a children's film, but it's
Right.
much more of a kind of covert animal rights film.
Yeah.
People usually say they've watched Dominion or they watched Game Changers or Earthlands, but it's nice to hear that something is sort of innocent, if you like, is Babe has made the difference. Yeah.
Definitely.
So how did you get involved with Surge, and what is it about Surge which connects with you?
That's a great question. So at the beginning of this weird COVID period of time that we're in, maybe around March time, I was feeling this lack of purpose. I was just feeling very helpless, which I think a lot of people in the world were feeling, this way. And so I knew that I wanted to contribute more to the world and help out in some way. So I decided to contact Earthling Ed and ask if, I could be his assistant or something, or just volunteer for him in some sort of way. And so I contacted him, and then I think it was like the next day, I got an email from his actual assistant. And so, yeah, I've been getting involved with Surge, which is his, animal rights organization. And yeah, it's been really, really great. And the reason why I'm so drawn towards Surge is because I think that they're just a lot more appealing to the younger audience, like millennials and younger, I would say.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, I think PETA, obviously, the biggest animal rights organization in the world, I fully support everything that they do. And I think that they've been doing such great work for animals. But I do think that sometimes, they don't appeal to every audience, if that makes sense. So I think Surge does a really great job about, in a way, making caring about animals and the environment, they make it look cool.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important when you're trying to reach a younger audience. And so, yeah, and just, you look at their website, you look at their Instagram, and it's beautiful. It's very aesthetically pleasing. So yeah, I'm just drawn to them, and yeah, for so many reasons.
I mean, there's a lot of us really admire Ekwall and Ed. We were actually interviewing Tatty, Ekwall and Ed's assistant, in a
I
few
love
weeks.
her.
She's just so lovely. She's so lovely. Because we had exactly the same sort of thing. It's like the ethics. It's kind of like the laid back but firm approach, factual based, not shouty,
Yes.
aggressive, not overly aggressive.
Right.
That's kind of like how we wanted to have our group, so people are kind of being brought on board rather than being turned off. And I think you're right. I think I think there's probably space for everyone, every type of activism, because different types of activism will reach different people. But I think Sage and Ekwall and Ed and kind of like that sort of activism is kind of how I see our group sort of working, like a much more laid back educational approach.
Yeah, definitely.
So what kind of roles as an actor do you particularly enjoy playing, and how much of an emotional toll does it take on you? And what is the role which you've had which has made you most proud?
Oh, okay. So I would say, surprisingly, because in my personal life, I'm quite bubbly and positive and very happy and very friendly. But in my acting career, I tend to be drawn towards darker roles and characters. I think just because we tend to want, as actors, we tend to want to explore people that we aren't, and or just parts of ourselves that we haven't really explored. So yeah, I'm definitely drawn towards darker material. What was the second question?
So does it take an emotional toll on you if you're playing these really dark characters? I'm presuming that it does.
No, actually, I tend to not take my work home with me, because I think it can kind of be pretty dangerous. If I'm doing a really emotional scene, I try not to take it home with me. But I will say that prior to that scene, or prior to a very emotional audition, there's a lot of prep time that goes on before then to get to that emotional place. So I guess it's slightly method acting, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, I would say that I try to separate my personal life with my performance. Oh, and then the other question was, what role have I been most proud of? So I would say that I'm most proud of the character Amy that I played in this film called The Mountain. It was my first lead in a feature film. And I will say, so it's on Amazon Prime if anyone wants to watch it. But I will say that not all of the scenes are great. But I would say I'm most proud of that because it was, my first time being a lead in a film. And it's based on a true story. So that was really, that added just like another layer of complexity to the storytelling. And that was such an honor to meet the person that I was actually playing. So that was really cool. And yeah, I think some of my best acting was definitely in that film. And so, yeah, that was just such an adventure, honestly.
It must be quite difficult, like you said, if it's a true story and obviously the person who you're playing is still there, so you can talk to them. So what do they think of the role, and what do they think of the job you did?
I hope good. I remember on the premiere night, we were, all in the movie theater together, and I could see her. She was like maybe like 7 rows ahead of me with her partner. And at the end of the film, they're both crying. And so it could either mean a very good thing or a very bad thing. So
I'm sure it was a very good thing.
Thank you.
I'm sure it was. So being an activist, that also takes its toll on you as well.
Yes.
Sometimes you're dealing with uninterested or difficult or aggressive people. How do you look after your own mental health and well-being?
So I'm thankfully, knock on wood, I have not come across any aggressive people, but I definitely have come across difficult people for sure. I remember I was doing a chalking event, right in the center of town here. And, writing very peaceful messages on the sidewalks about veganism and love and peace. And this woman walks by and she says, "I'm going to come back here with a hose and hose all of this down." And we were just like, what? So you definitely get those people for sure. I would say that, let's see what I wrote down here for this. Because there's definitely a lot to unpack here. I would say that meditation is really great to use, it's a really great practice to add to your daily routine. I think all activists should meditate, or just take some time to decompress, because it is, the term dystopia, the anguish that, vegans feel in a non-vegan world. We all experience that, and because we are the minority, unfortunately. So I think it's really important to take care of ourselves, because if we don't take care of ourselves, then we definitely can't take care of the animals and the rest of the world, and support each other. So I think that, meditation, going to therapy. I think, we need to normalize therapy, going to therapy, and just talking to friends and doing things that you enjoy, because I think it's very easy to get discouraged and despondent, especially like 2020, this year has been crazy. So I think mental health, if that is, a priority, I think then, everything else falls into place. So yeah.
Yeah, it's very true though that if you can't advocate or campaign for animals if you're not well yourself. So you do have to look after yourself, and sometimes you do see some horrendous things, and you've got to take time to look after yourself or ask for help when you need it. Yeah,
definitely.
So, is there an element of action when you're doing any activism? Do you sort of is there anything you need to draw on kind of to get you through that particular conversation or particular event?
That's a great question. I would say the performative aspect of acting definitely comes into play for activism, for sure. But I would say that I wouldn't want to call my activism acting, because it does come from a very genuine and authentic place. And I think that all activists should come from that place, because that's the only way we're going to touch and reach other people, is if we come from a genuine place. Because people connect with realness, So, but I would say definitely, and Earthling Ed, I'm sure, can attest to this, when he gives these beautiful TED Talks and speeches at universities, there's definitely a performative aspect to that. But I still think that, being genuine, being honest, that's sort of key there.
Yeah. You actually did a Harvard lecture last night, which a lot of us were watching.
Yes.
Yeah. So that was, I think that was from he must have been sitting in his study. But it was really, really good listening to him. So on a more practical level, and when you're filming, are you able to access vegan food easily? And are you able to talk about animal rights and veganism with your fellow actors and co-workers?
Yes. So, it's so funny. I was just telling my dad this the other night, that honestly, every film set that I've worked on, there's usually one other vegan on set, which is really cool. Like, for example, yesterday I was doing this hand modeling job, and one of the crew members on set was also vegan. And he used the terminology plant-based, but vegan. And so we were able to talk about nutrition and sort of the health benefits of veganism, and we were talking about documentaries. And I think that it's so great to be able to feel like you're not alone in this world. You're not the only vegan, but also when you're talking to this crew member, other crew members and other actors kind of overhear the conversation and will chime in and ask questions. And I think that's when you sort of plant seeds in people's minds about veganism and this whole movement, because most people are not educated on this subject. And so if they can just overhear something and just start questioning it, that's how it starts, you know. Yeah.
I think when they're seeing the food you're eating as well, you know, sort of how delicious the food is, and then they're kind of asking these little sort of like starter questions, and then it gives you an opening to start talking about it. It's a good way, it's a good in, because otherwise they would, if they haven't seen the food, they wouldn't necessarily come over, and they wouldn't have known you were vegan for a start.
Exactly. And yeah, I mean, yesterday when we ordered lunch, you know, the other vegan and I, his name is Jeff and I, you know, both ordered the same thing. You know, we wanted the veggie melt, but without the cheese. So, you know, it just kind of, people ask questions because they're like, oh, like, why are you not getting the meat sandwich or whatever? And that, I think those are, sometimes I think vegans can be quite shy.
Yeah.
And not want to talk about, like, not want to go there. But you know, I figure, you know, if they're asking the question, they're actually curious. So this is a great, you know, opportunity to talk about veganism and animal rights. So
I think it's probably non-vegans think we are judging them, and vegans think that we think they're judging them. So
yeah,
probably they don't say anything. So, but it is good when that conversation starts. Yeah,
definitely.
So what are you currently up to then? And do you have any plans to return to the UK to work with Serge?
Oh, I would love to. So actually, I didn't mention this, but I was living in London about a year ago. I was working for 2 vegan YouTubers living in London, and it was such a blast. So yes, I would love to move back to the UK at some point, you know, after post-COVID, after COVID. If the world doesn't end, I would love to move back to London someday, and to actually work with Serge in person. But yeah, I guess for now, so my plan is to move to LA actually in the next couple of months, and you know, still work with Serge and Toddy remotely. But yeah, hopefully, you know, down the road, I'll go back to London, and that will be great.
You'll be very welcome over here.
Oh, thank you.
I know that if you come over at the moment, you probably won't be able to get out.
Oh, so maybe I should go then.
Well, that's all the questions I have for you now. So thank you very much. It's been absolutely delightful. It's been a real pleasure talking to you. So thank you very much for giving up your time.
Yes, of course. It was a pleasure for me too.
Thank you very much. So this is Anna-Malia signing off now, just talking to Julia Ekwall there for the Saturday Spotlight series of interviews. So we'll say goodbye for now then. Okay.
Bye.
Bye.